All right. Beautiful. Right, you two? Time for you to do some work. Time for you to do some work. Baby. All right. Perfect. You got the first ones. All right. Morning, everybody. How we feeling? Look at the beautiful price. Classic. Don't we like it? Don't we like it? Early, we're ready. Early and ready. That's the way to go. That is the way to go. Perfect. Right. We're in. We are in. Let's go. Beautiful. Morning, everybody. How we doing? Drop a like. Consider subscribing to the channel and turn on the notification bell button right now, fam. Welcome, welcome. Great Wednesday, 100%. 100%. How many people do we have here? 700 people already. we'll put it. It's time to pump XRP. Bring it, bring it, bring it. It's happening. Brad Garling has already posting. All right, there he is. We got Brad, we got Ripple. Pump it up, fam. Getting ready and settled. Should have about 1,000 people plus. Yep, almost 2,000 people.
Welcome, everybody. This is Brad Garlinghouse. I am excited to be here, excited that all of you are here, but welcome to our second annual XRP Community Day. This really is a day that's meant for all of you, XRP holders, XRP enthusiasts, XRP builders, any XRP users, and frankly, everyone in between who is part of this XRP family, sometimes the XRP army, depending upon the topic. But this is about hearing from the whole community, starting with us here at Ripple and from me, but also hearing from people building on the XRP ledger, hearing from people around XRP ETFs, exchanges, digital asset treasuries, and frankly, so many others who believe in the utility and the long-term, very transformative opportunity of XRP. For those of you, this is your second time around. We had over 250,000
Go ahead. Brad. Brad, where are you? Oh.
Brad, I believe we may have lost your audio.
Yeah, we lost your audio, Brad. Welcome to X Spaces, by the way. Welcome to X Spaces. This is what happens. What happens is that Brad is speaking right now, but I don't think he can listen to us. Yeah. Oh my goodness, really? It's happening right now? No way. Oh. Where's the audio? Really?
Okay, I'm told you guys lost me at some point there. Maybe somebody give me an indication that you can hear me now.
Hi, Brad. This is Tony. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I guess you guys, well, Tony, you tell me, what did you lose during that intro? I can rewind as needed.
I believe you were speaking on the utility around XRP, such as ETFs, digital asset treasury, and then you cut off.
Oh, so the very beginning. All right. So anyway, the point being that we've got a bunch of different speakers today from across the XRP ecosystem, representing exchanges, ETF issuers, digital asset treasuries. Last year, some of you guys remember, we had 250,000 listeners. I'm excited to see what we have this year. I'm going to skip a little bit, it's just into time, but look, Tony Edward, I think, needs no introduction. I assume many of you know him from Thinking Crypto, which truly is one of the most popular crypto podcasts. But we're going to talk about the macro view for all.
I think we lost your audio again, Brad.
Right, Tony, we got you?
Yes. Okay, so Brad, you cut out there again.
Maybe I'm going to switch to my laptop off my phone. I'll be right back.
No problem.
Elevator music.
Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Excited for this conversation with Brad. And of course, the title of this session will be The Era of XRP in Capital Markets. So thank you all for joining, and we'll let Brad get connected on his laptop here. X Spaces has been notorious for having some issues because it's kind of buggy, as I'm sure many of you have experienced. So we'll just give him a few minutes to get connected.
How's it going, everybody? Good morning. Okay, very good. That's funny. Here it comes, more music. Cyber in the house. What's up, buddy? Welcome. Welcome.
Tony, can you hear me now?
Yes, coming through loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you. We are ready to go, ready to roll.
Awesome. Well, good morning, Brad. Thank you for taking the time to do this, and excited for our conversation today. I believe the last time we spoke was in Miami at Ripple Swell, I think a couple of years ago.
I remember it well, and I think Ripple Swell Miami was, I thought, a special one. We're obviously glad to be back here in New York for them now, but thank you for doing that. And I've talked to you a couple times, obviously, so I look forward to this and more in the future.
Absolutely. So, Brad, I believe the first and most important question I need to ask you, and maybe top of mind for many folks, are you planning to flip any switches soon?
Look, I do like this question because I'm always a little bit humored. And the way I think about this is, if there was one magic switch, I promise you, I would have flipped it. The way I think about this is there's a culmination of thousands of switches. And those are switches being turned by Ripple. Those are switches being turned by the community represented here, by all the different small pieces that collectively, I think, have an exponentially increasing impact. And so, look, I'm as bullish and optimistic as anyone when I think about the opportunity for XRP. I promise you that if there is a switch to flip, I certainly would.
By the way, I was just talking about maybe some of the switches at the Ripple office or at your house. So, but on a more
there are light switches everywhere.
Yeah, but on a more serious note, Brad, before we get into all things Ripple and XRP, I have to ask you about what happened in the global markets last week. What do you make of this drawdown, and how does it compare to the past cycles?
That's an important question. And look, I as I tweeted out kind of in the middle of it, whenever I see people being exceptionally fearful, I feel greedy. Whenever I see people being really greedy, I feel fearful. But last week was a bloodbath. And, certainly markets have stabilized and now recovering to some degree. I do want to zoom out a little bit and put this into context. Look, there are a lot of smart people, many of them on Twitter. Silver and gold were down, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and around 15%, as a sell-off. Certainly, crypto this year has tracked some of the US equity markets around software and particularly some of the AI stuff. And then if you zoom out kind of to your question, the drawdown is comparable to the 22 bear cycle, but it's actually done better than that. BTC ended down 48% versus 77% in the 22 bear cycle. And look, XRP this year is the best of the major cryptos. It's other than Bitcoin, it's the best performing kind of year to date. The other thing I'll point out is that since the Trump election, XRP is by far the best performing of the major crypto assets, up about 170%. Yeah, Bitcoin's basically flat since the Trump election. So, I do, as frustrating as that bloodbath was and kind of continues to be to some degree, I think it's important to zoom out and, look at the broader landscape as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And markets are cyclical. We've seen this many times in this asset class, and it's the same for the stock market and other asset classes as well. But Brad, on that note, you joined Ripple in 2015, and a lot has changed since then. We've seen certainly some arduous pain points, within the crypto industry, especially under the Gensler regime. But how do you feel about the growth the industry has seen over time?
I think that kind of gets to the zoom out point. And when I joined in 2015, I first got involved in crypto in 2012, and got obviously more involved when I joined Ripple in 2015. And again, that was, although it's been 10 years, in the grand scheme of things, 10 years really isn't that long when you think about money, when you think about currency, when you think about financial infrastructure. 10 years actually isn't that long. And honestly, had you told me 10 years ago when I joined Ripple that we'd be having these crypto conversations on a global stage, on certainly a national stage, that you'd literally see Congress actively debating, as I think has been well covered. There was a meeting at the White House yesterday where Stu Alderodi, our chief legal officer, represented Team Ripple. Those are things I definitely would not have predicted 10 years ago. So now we've got a long way to go, and I certainly don't want to gloss over that. But these are massive markets, and the opportunity to rewire, accelerate, and make the financial infrastructure more efficient is, I think, truly profound.
And speaking of infrastructure, Ripple has made several major acquisitions over the past 2 years. What's the strategy for 2026? Is it integration of those respective acquisitions, additional acquisitions, or both?
Well, look, I'm super proud of the kind of playing offense last year. And again, you got to remember that for at least 3.5, 4 years, Ripple was playing defense. And just recently, we've been able to kind of shift that into playing offense again, and that has felt great. I feel like we lost some time, which is frustrating, but we're going to work very hard in 2026 to make up that time. I think both of the big acquisitions we made, one in Hidden Road, which is now called Ripple Prime, and two, G Treasury, which we now call Ripple Treasury, are really demonstrative of, I think, too many in the crypto landscape are focused inside the echo chamber. And we were very focused on going outside of the echo chamber, in bringing traditional finance to crypto. So, I'll use G Treasury as an example. Now Ripple Treasury, but G Treasury was already, they have over 1,000 corporate clients where they really are the CFO dashboard, managing liquidity, deposits, currencies, and they had 0% penetration of either digital assets or stablecoin. So the 13 or 14 trillion dollars that they orchestrated around payments, of which, not a huge percentage, but a material percentage was cross-border, that's just all ripe opportunity. They prior to acquisition had visibility into lots of deposits that are effectively dormant and not really being optimized around yield. Well, now we can help them with that using RLUSD and bringing more liquidity on the XRP ledger. So, now the last part of your question, you're right. This year is much more about integration. We have two amazing leaders who came on board and joined my team, who now are, kind of figuring out how to make sure to integrate some of those things we're just talking about. But I could not really be much more pleased. I don't mind sharing. I'm here in New York, and we had a team offsite yesterday, kind of talking through some of these things as we thought about our 2026 strategy. So it's definitely going to be a year of more integration. I don't think you should expect any other big acquisitions, but you never know. The second half of the year, we'll start looking to be more acquisitive again.
And Brad, with the integration on that topic, and even the larger theme of adoption of blockchain technology by TradFi and crypto-focused companies such as Ripple acquiring TradFi companies, right? It's kind of happening on both sides. Do you see over time that it won't necessarily be the crypto market and the TradFi market, that you have this convergence, and it's just going to be the market because they're all going to be running on blockchain rails?
Tony, so first of all, I think this is an incredibly important question, and I'm gonna make fun of my age a little bit here. I've been around the technology landscape for a long time. I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997 in the earliest days of the internet, and in those early days of the internet, we would call things an internet company. And Amazon was an internet company, Yahoo was an internet company, and it's like no, actually Amazon's just a commerce company, Yahoo is just a media company. And over time we realized the internet is going to be pervasive in every company, and we're not going to have just internet companies, we're going to have companies that integrate these technologies. I believe the exact same thing is true around crypto and blockchain. And even when I talk about Ripple, you'll rarely hear me refer to Ripple as a crypto or blockchain company. Instead, I think about it as we're an infrastructure company, almost a platform company around financial services. It happens to be we leverage crypto and blockchain to deliver those solutions better, cheaper, faster, stronger. But I don't think in the years ahead we'll talk about these companies as crypto first. And I think, frankly, companies who do that are going to miss the bigger opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is Ripple approaching institutions when it comes to utilizing the XRP ledger and even the XRP token? And I'll reference, some recent adoption news like the Bitunix Diamond tokenization with Control Alt, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yep.
How are you approaching these institutions?
So first of all, I've said this now a few times on Twitter, but I want to say it here for this community in my own voice. It may not always be obvious. I want every single person in the XRP family, the XRP army, to know that XRP is the North Star for Ripple. It's our purpose.
Not bad.
When we think about what we're doing on Ripple payments, or Ripple Prime, or Ripple Treasury, or custody, or RLUSD, this is all focused on how we can drive utility, trust, and velocity or liquidity around XRP and the XRP ledger. So, things like Ripple payments on the DEX with permissioned domains, Ripple Prime using XRP for collateral and lending, Ripple Treasury we kind of talked about, doing enabled payments around XRP and RLUSD within Treasury management. These are all examples of where we are going to continue to make sure, as we think about Ripple as a platform company for financial infrastructure, that XRP is at the heartbeat of that. You'll hear more about this, some of those specifics from Monica Long, our president at Ripple, later today. And this morning you may have seen we announced Aviva Investors, one of the largest asset management firms in the world, tokenizing on the XRP ledger. So we're going to continue to focus on that institutional opportunity. Ripple has decided to partner when it comes to partner or invest or support companies going after the consumer opportunity. But hopefully it gives a sense of kind of where we are with that.
And the OCC recently granted Ripple conditional approval for a banking license. What does this enable Ripple to do today, and what changes once the conditional provisions are removed?
So, I think I leave aside the longer term, big picture opportunity, what we could do. The charter today, this really allows stability around RLUSD. Many people know that we originally set up and launched RLUSD under the New York DFS kind of trust license, Department of Financial Services in New York, which we felt like at the time was the gold standard. We now have both of these, and it's really, we want to be the most regulated, compliant, because we're focused on institutional flows. Like, that is the priority. Now, the specifics around the OCC charter, it allows kind of better bankruptcy protections for reserve assets. It makes it very clear that RLUSD is a leader under the Genius Act framework, but it really secures and kind of cements our leading position, and we've seen that recognized by analysts and reporters alike. But we really are the first stablecoin issuer to have oversight as a trust company at both the state and federal levels. And we think that dual layer is the gold standard. So that's why that's important. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about what we could do in the future. There's been some commentary about a Fed master account, which we do think is compelling. And there's things we may do in the future that I'm not going to go into today. But suffice it to say, you asked earlier that if you told me 10 years ago we would have even conditional approval from the OCC or kind of even engagement with the OCC, like that is massive progress relative to where we started this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I sometimes have to pinch myself to when I see these news items and the crypto industry are integrating into the TradFi world and these licenses and all these things being provided. It's pretty amazing, but shows the potential of this technology, and we still have ways to go.
Well, you've been a good person to, I mean, as I said in my introduction, which I guess was the audit, the audio wasn't working so well, but I mean, you've been along this journey for a long time as well and kind of seen a lot of it firsthand. So we have appreciated that. And I know a lot of people in the community appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And a two-part question here. How is Ripple planning to support the XRP ecosystem with users, developers, and builders? And what are your favorite qualities of the XRP community?
Look, I will start by just being a very genuine. I freaking love this community. I love this army. And, I feel like we're a community when we need to be a community. When we're an army, we need to be an army based upon kind of everybody who's attacking us. But the fact that this group has stayed with us through thick and thin and honestly dug into the data and kind of do your own research, dug into where XRP is well positioned and where it makes sense to use something else, or it does make sense to use XRP. And there's a lot to love about the underlying technology. And I could not be more proud to call myself a member of the XRP family. I'm really in awe of the community and the kind of passion, the resilience is just awesome. And again, I kind of lurk on Twitter sometimes, as you guys know, and seeing people kind of correct and even honestly also appropriately just ignoring some people, because it's like some people they're spreading they're just intentionally spreading misinformation.
Liars,
like,
Brad. They're liars.
Okay, but one of the things I'm probably most excited about, which is I think the important part of your question here, I think this year, getting more activity and momentum around the lending protocol and other protocols, it's just moving further. It's a priority for me. It's a priority for Ripple. But yield generation, and whether it's Ripple supporting partners like Flare, Morpho, there's companies Uphold, Doppler, Axelar, but all of these companies are doing things around yield generation on the XRP ledger. And I think it's critically important to make it more institutional, more friendly to the community. There are some L1s are kind of ahead of us in this. And I think 2026, seeing real progress on this is important. And I'll also just say, part of this, I'm proud of this community and frankly, proud of Ripple. When we focus on something, we are really freaking good. And, this is definitely going to be a focus area in 2026.
And you celebrated the launch of the XRP spot ETFs last year, a major on-ramp, and these have been created for other assets as well, but certainly XRP was one of the most anticipated. And where do you think the ETF market is going this year, and what does this signal about the regulated investment products?
Look, I think this is a really important in terms of making all of crypto more institutional. And again, as you guys know, I believe in a multi-chain world. I'm not an XRP maxi. I think XRP is exceptionally good at some really big solution frameworks, but I'm proud of the fact that Bitcoin had a really successful and powerful ETF launch. Now, XRP was the fastest spot ETF to hit 1 billion in assets under management since ETH. In less than a month. Today, it stands at about 1.5 billion. Even last week, when there was kind of massive, carnage going on in the market, there was positive inflows of, I think $30 or $40 million, which is great. And look, some of the big pivots that I wouldn't have expected. Vanguard, as one of the largest asset managers in the country, in the U.S., it had until recently, I think it was early December, had been very anti-crypto, and Vanguard finally is opening up access and retirement accounts, and it shows that public markets are keen to invest in crypto, and ultimately, these big players like Vanguard need to adopt what their customers want, and their customers, as demonstrated by the ETFs, not just of XRP but of Bitcoin as well. Customers want it and they need to provide it. And that's important.
So Brad, you referenced Vanguard. It seems that institutions, they must have a crypto or blockchain strategy now. It would be kind of foolish to not have one. In the years before, they kind of ignored it, but it seems like everyone needs to have a strategy now.
Yeah, like I agree. Again, I'll say something I said earlier. Like I think we are still in early days, so I don't think we've seen massive adoption yet, and we're kind of in an entrepreneurial journey. One of the things you kind of talk about is going from 0 to 1, and then 1 to 100, and then beyond. And I think 2025 we went from 0 to 1, and that's manifested by ETFs. It's manifested by, frankly, even the BlackRocks of the world. Larry Fink talking about the opportunity around tokenizing assets on blockchains is profound. It's still very early, but crypto isn't fringe anymore. It's being absorbed into capital markets, into treasury management, into prime brokerage. And, I think institutions are no longer just exploring blockchain just for crypto exposure. It's for settlement efficiency, for cross-border liquidity. And when you underlay all of that with the improving picture around regulatory clarity, you add all those different pieces together, and honestly, Tony, it's a conundrum that you're seeing the crypto markets struggle over the last 3 or 4 months. I'm incredibly optimistic about what's ahead in 2026. I look forward to the reality I just talked through, catching up with the crypto markets and how crypto assets are priced.
And one of the catalysts that could boost further adoption is the Clarity Act passing. Do you see that passing this year, and what impact may it have?
I mean, Tony, look, I'm an entrepreneur, and so people accuse me of always being optimistic, and so I'm guilty as charged. Now, that being said, I have been very close to this. Ripple has been very close to this. As I mentioned earlier, our chief legal officer was at the White House yesterday. You saw some coverage about that. You have this White House pushing hard to get that moving again. Frankly, I was disappointed and frustrated that it stalled. When the chairman of the banking committee, Tim Scott, kind of paused, if you will. I do think it's going to get moving again here shortly. I think there was some very constructive conversation yesterday at the White House on how to bridge the gap between what some of the banks are feeling and what the crypto community. But look, what the markup that Senator Scott was going to bring had overwhelming support from the crypto community and support around banking. And so I think we're going to get it back on track. I'll give it 75% that by the end of April, this is not just back on track, but very close to getting signed.
Final question here, Brad, as we wrap up. Where do you see Ripple in 2030?
Ooh, wow, 2030.
To the moon.
Well, so first of all, I mean, that's only 4 years from now. I mean, that used to feel so far away, and now it's pretty close. Look, I think Ripple will continue to grow as a platform company for financial infrastructure that permeates, it brings XRP and the XRP ledger into all of our use cases and continues to drive that trust, that utility and liquidity in XRP. But look, the thing I will emphasize, of course, we want Ripple to be successful within XRP. I want to keep reminding people, Ripple's reason for existence is driving success around XRP and the XRP ecosystem. We will continue to build products and services that customers love and will pay for to make Ripple successful, but it's in service of the overall XRP ecosystem, and we'll champion technology improvements around XRP as we have, but also champion other use cases and investments that we think will help achieve that. So look, I think there's a chance there will be a $1 trillion crypto company. I don't doubt that for a second. I think Ripple has the opportunity, if we do things well in partnership with the overall XRP ecosystem, to be that company, and maybe there'll be more than one.
Exciting times are ahead. Brad, I was told you had an announcement to share about exclusive swag.
Yeah, look, Tony, I mean, this is kind of on the fun side of things, but before we close,
And as I shared via a teaser yesterday on Twitter, we're doing the first kind of XRP Community Day swag drop. I posted a crew neck that we're going to be giving away. It's got XRP Community Day. It's a limited edition design. Only 2,000 were produced. It's really our way of saying thank you for spending the day with us, obviously virtually, but as part of the XRP community. I'm super excited to kick off the first swag drop, and you'll see our Ripple X Dev account just shared a link in the comments on how to enter to win one. There'll be a few more drops throughout the event when the website is live, so stay tuned for the next one later in the EMEA segment, and then again for the Americas and APAC segment of the event. But look, I'll close just by saying I really appreciate all of you for being here. We have an exciting day planned. I appreciate everybody who kind of organized and helped brought it together. But thank you, Tony, for joining me in this kickoff. And so with all of that, and maybe right on time, despite the audio problems at the beginning, I will hand it off to Marcus Enfinger, our Senior Vice President of RippleX, for the next session.
Let's go. I'm getting
Thank
one.
you,
I'm getting
Brad.
one.
Hi, everyone.
I'm getting one.
Following on from Brad's opening, it feels pretty clear that the momentum behind the XRP ecosystem has never been stronger. I'm Marcus Enfinger, SVP of RippleX, and I spent 2 decades in global banking prior to Ripple. And so seeing TradFi giants like the one we're about to discuss embrace the speed and efficiency of the XRP ledger is exactly why I'm here. Look, it's really an incredible time to be having this conversation. The popularity of tokenized real-world assets, or RWAs, continues to increase as we've seen billions of financial assets move onto public chains globally. I want to highlight here upfront that the XRPL currently ranks 6th in the total assets league table on R.
That one. Now, what happened with this space?
Come silent. Yeah, Marcus has gone silent, I think.
All right, guys. So here it is. Go ahead and get yours. Go ahead and get yours. I just did it. Can you copy and paste that link? Maybe not.
Marcus, I think we lost your audio.
Go ahead and get yours. Go ahead and get yours. Here it is. Click that link. It's gonna take you to this page. It's gonna take you to this page, guys. XRP limited edition XRP swag drop. It's gonna take you here, and then once you're here, you click here the shirt, and then you will be able to get it. Once you click, it's gonna ask you for your information, and once you do that, boom. Now, what happened with this space? What happened to the space? Hello? I think everybody's just getting their shirts again. Oh, somebody's coming now. We're here, but again, they gave us the music. It's okay. I'm getting more. I'm getting more shirts. Let's see. I'm getting more shirts. What's this? Oh, L is sold out. L is sold out. Okay, all L's are out now. Oh wow, there's flying. Okay, well at least I got one. Okay, I'm gonna let it for more people then. Wow, crazy. Sold out. That went quick. I got one, so woo! I was like, let me get one. Let me just confirm with my, yeah, there you go. XRP Community Day. I got it. This sweatshirt. I wanted a shirt, not a sweatshirt. I mean, that's the only thing they have. The sweatshirt, but it's okay. It's okay. Who's next? Who's next? Let's go ahead and leave this and then get back. So we have Community Day and then we'll join again. Thank you, Ripple. Yep. There it is. Confirm. Order confirm. Nice. So 2000 limited edition. We got one, fam. That's awesome. Really, really nice. Let's go back to this because sometimes coming in and coming out helps you remove anything lagging or so. Go back to the price right now. Price is back in session. I just wanted to give you the link so you could get your own shirt.
Is to bring tokenized fund structures onto the XRPL. Against backdrop, I'm super excited to be here today with Alistair Sewell, Senior Investment Director at Aviva Investors, a firm managing over £250 billion in assets. Alistair, it's great to have you. To start us off, sorry.
Even better to have you. It's even better to have you back.
Awesome. It's good to hear you. To start us off, many of us, joining here in Europe will know Aviva Investors well. But for those elsewhere who aren't as familiar, could you briefly introduce yourself and the company?
I'd be delighted to. And look, I've got to say, what a privilege, what an honor it is to be here with you today. And speaking personally, I can say that I and Aviva Investors are absolutely delighted by this partnership we've entered into with Ripple. So Aviva Investors is the investment management arm of Aviva PLC, which is the UK's largest diversified insurer. It's a business whose origins stretch back more than 325 years. And today we serve over 25 million customers across the UK, helping them protect what matters, save for the future, and manage risk in an increasingly complex world. And when I think back, Marcus, over that history of Aviva Investors, that 325 years, I think we've seen a lot of change in that time. And one of my favorite historical examples is our early adoption of the telegraph. Now, you may remember January 1838, or maybe you don't remember January 1838, but that was when the very first telegraph was ever sent. And Aviva Investors' predecessor firms were among some of the earliest commercial users of this technology, using telegraphy to accelerate underwriting and claims long before digital systems existed. And that's really important. That's a reminder that technological change is not new to our industry, and that we've been able to consistently embrace innovations in the past to make markets faster, safer, and more connected. And that very same mindset drives us today. You know, we manage over $335 billion, 250 sterling in assets across public and private markets, and we are always looking for technologies that can help us improve how we serve our clients. And what we hope to do with you at Ripple is exactly that, a step into the future.
That's awesome and really impressive. Over 300 years of early adoption and embracing technology. So it's really exciting. Let's talk about the new collaboration between Aviva Investors and Ripple, which we're really excited to announce earlier today. So, Alistair, what's happening? What does it actually mean? And why is it important? Why should people in the XRP community care?
Well, there's a very simple reason why people in the XRP community should care, because this is a great example of how a traditional financial institution is embracing this new technology, is embracing the XRP ledger to move our operations into the future. What that means in specific terms is we are going to be working with Ripple to bring tokenized mutual fund structures onto the XRP ledger. So these are going to be yield-bearing tokens with highly stable value due to the high quality and the high stability of the assets backing them. These are a form of a yield-bearing token, which will essentially bring us as a traditional investment manager, as a traditional financial institution into the future. And this will enable for us, this will enable faster settlement. It will enable automated lifecycle events. It will reduce operational frictions, and it will improve distribution models. And Marcus, I have to say, this isn't experimentation for its own sake. We recognize that financial markets are changing, the way they operate is changing, and we want our products to be able to integrate seamlessly with the digital ecosystem we're going to see in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. To double click a little bit on that, what problems specifically are you looking to solve by bringing your funds onto the XRPL? Can you share a little bit more about the use cases and sort of like the envisioned end state of the value created here for your stakeholders?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give you another real quick history lesson here, Marcus. And this time the history lesson is the mutual fund. Did you know the mutual fund was invented in 1924? That's 102 years. So that was 100 years that we've been using mutual funds in our industry. And look, they're a great product. They served investors really well. They do great things for people. But they're also 100 years old. I think we can do a little bit better than that. I think we can bring that technology forwards. What does that mean in specific terms? And in direct answer to your question, well, it means we can move settlement cycles for funds from days to seconds. It means we can eliminate some of the manual reconciliations which ultimately cause cost increases in funds. It means we can consolidate data flows into simpler and more accessible patterns. And also we can address one of the really important things, which is the limited mobility today of assets for collateral purposes. Now I realize collateral is getting a little bit technical in terms of financial market jargon, and maybe we can unpack that a little bit later. But this ability to move collateral faster is a real game changer for traditional financial institutions like Aviva Investors. And that's because we can move from slow settlement to near instant settlement. We can move to synchronized data.
They went
we can move
fast,
to 24/7
bro.
trading.
Wow.
And we can move to moving our assets around in real time. That is tangible utility. That is tangible benefit for end investors.
Wow. Gone.
It's really exciting listening to you. I just recall, hey, this is exactly the kind of reason why I joined this industry, and just this notion of seeing financial markets at large just operate much more productively. And so yeah, it's just exciting. This is now falling into place. Shifting gears a bit here, how easy was it for you to get internal buy-in for the initiative, and do you anticipate any challenges as things move forward? Appreciate Aviva Investors, pretty significantly sized company, and navigations,
gonna be more.
aren't always super simple, I can imagine.
No, absolutely. And change is hard. And I think we all recognize and we all understand that change is hard, but we also recognize that change is necessary. Change is necessary to accommodate the future. And also, frankly, being very candid here, is we recognize the risk of disruption. We see there is a scenario where financial markets move at scale to a digital basis, to a digital infrastructure. And in order to remain relevant, to be able to capture the opportunities that present itself, it's important that we change. But look, that change is hard, Marcus. You're absolutely right. And I know you've got a history on the traditional financial institution side as well. So enabling that change is difficult, right? And I think the way that we approach that is number one, Aviva Investors has a long history of innovation. We have innovated both in the past. I gave the example of the telegraph, but more recently, we've done some really interesting stuff in the carbon removal market, for example. There are interesting things we focus on, and that innovation is part of our lifeblood, part of our desire to change. But to make it happen, it's about building messaging.
Keep listening, fam.
It's about identifying the people internally who are willing to bear the torch, who are willing to engage with this new technology and build momentum, build buy-in, and actually make tangible change. And that doesn't just come from a single individual. That comes from many individuals from many different functions who come together who see the potential, who see the roadblocks, and work to climb over those roadblocks. I think from a timing perspective, what we see is, as an institution, we see that this technology is maturing. And I think Brad used the example in his opening remarks about the entrepreneurial perspective and about where we are now. And I think he's absolutely right. We're at the point where the technology is maturing. We're at the point where we're seeing client needs evolve. We're seeing the point where the direction of travel for markets is very, very clear. And so we need to adapt to that. And by working with Ripple, we hope to do so. It's not going to be an easy path forward, so we're under no illusions here. We have legacy systems within our business. We need to interact with those. We have regulatory issues that we need to address, and we need to work with our regulators in a constructive and productive manner to enable these opportunities. And we need to scale the operational readiness. These are big ticket items, but we embrace the challenge, we rise to that challenge, and we can't wait to get our teeth into it. It is exciting, Marcus.
So look, first of all, congrats on getting this initiative so far internally, rallying the relevant support. And thank you for being a champion for the technology. And look, we at Ripple, we've always believed this movement is a collaborative movement, is working with the system to transform financial markets. And so it's important to have partnerships like this, building the relevant bridge, so to speak. Shifting gears again a little bit, I know this initiative ultimately envisions the promised land of sort of like enabling on-chain repo. And just quickly, for those less familiar with the term, think of repo as the essential daily plumbing of Wall Street. So sort of a platform to manage global financial liquidity needs and a way for institutions to either borrow cash by using their high-quality assets as collateral or lend cash to earn a secure return. So Alice,
Brad is bullish. We lost
Marcus, I'm going to continue. I think you were asking me about what we think about the on-chain repo market.
Exactly. Sorry, did I get lost there for a bit?
We lost you for 1 second, but that's fine. I was just going to say you did a great job of explaining what a repo is, and I can really only reiterate just how important repo is. It's the lifeblood of financial markets. It's really what drives almost everything that happens in financial markets. It may not be visible to many people, but it is there, and it is very significant. Did you know that the US repo market alone turned over more than $12 trillion every single day? That's a 12 with 12 zeros.
Trillion with a T.
12 trillion with a T, yeah. So when you think about a market that size, and if any efficiency gain, no matter how small it is, that means dollars. That means significant dollars. That means you can make real gains. You can make it more efficient. So what can you do with an on-chain repo? Well, you can do near instant settlement. And that crosses a huge barrier because currently today you'll have end-of-day netting processes, for example, which means intraday you may have less visibility than you'd like to on the collateral or the cash that's moving around on either side of that repo transaction. So having near instant settlement, giving you that visibility on it, means you can automate margining, for example. Your collateral can move in real time and you have far, far greater transparency. And look, this is a real life issue. This is a real concern for markets. I know many of the listeners to this are in the US or international, but back right here in the UK, just 3 years ago, we had real issues in our government bond market due to some unfortunate government policy decisions. And that was a time which just reveals how important it is to know where your collateral is, to know that you can move it fast to your counterparty if you need to, and you can react swiftly to a crisis event in markets. That's hard with conventional architecture. With a digital architecture, that becomes much, much easier, and this solves a whole raft of problems. So that's hugely important. The other interesting thing we can do with moving repo on chain is we can potentially change the cash leg for a tokenized money market fund. And that is a potential real game changer because it cuts out a lot of frictions that you have in the value chain for creating a repo today. I realize that's a little bit technical, but just think about it this way. That repo, which you described so beautifully at the beginning, Marcus, we can make it work simpler, faster, and with greater visibility, and that delivers tangible benefit, tangible utility to the entire financial system. We cannot underestimate how significant the gains are here.
Thank you, Alistair. And to state the obvious, very, very equally excited about the prospect and potential of this use case in particular. Maybe to just go even a layer deeper here, and also looking a little bit further ahead. As we look into this on-chain future, how do you see the pool of eligible collateral evolving? I would say we're starting to see, with these like high-grade funds. But do you see a world where native digital assets like XRP or Bitcoins eventually find their way into these institutional grade on-chain repo structure as sort of like emerging forms of collateral as they mature further from here and more regulation like Genius Acts and whatnot fall in place? What's your viewpoint there?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of regulatory pieces that will need to change to get really mass adoption of this, particularly outside of the US. In the US, we've seen great progress on this, but in other markets, there are still some regulatory blockers, which it gets a little bit technical in the characteristics of the repo market. I think where we begin is probably with bonds, so high quality government bonds, treasuries and the likes, or what we have in the UK, we call them gilts, which are the equivalent of US treasuries. We see it starting there and then probably expanding to other assets. Because, as you know, Marcus, there are two things that really matter in a repo. Those are the counterparty, so the guy on the other side, the guy or the girl on the other side of the table that you're interacting with, and the collateral that you're moving. Now, if that collateral is really high quality, then you can come to an agreement where you have relatively little margin in it. But as you start moving into other types of assets, then you're going to want a little bit more margin to cover you for any risk that you get in there. So effectively, this is risk neutral. So you're almost indifferent to what the asset is, provided the amount of haircut you're taking protects you from the risk of that. So the implication of that is, as technology becomes more widely adopted, as familiarity increases, as adoption increases, then investors are more than likely to be looking at a wider collateral set, provided they're working with a high quality counterparty that they trust, and that the amount of margin that they have is sufficient to cover them for the risk of the assets. And look, we are moving into a world where we have traditional assets. We're tokenizing those so they become into a digital format. We have digitally native assets, which do include some of the assets you've already mentioned. So I think there is a multi-asset future where many different asset types will be accepted into these transactions at scale. And as we both agreed earlier on, repo is the lifeblood of financial markets. This is really where TradFi can meet DeFi in a truly exciting way.
Thank you so much, Alistair. Makes a lot of sense in terms of the haircut aspects and all that, and lots of room to grow and mature there for crypto native assets, so to speak. I like to end the question set with the following. Look, there's been a lot of talk about RWA tokenization for several years now. Perhaps can you give us your view on what stage you think we're at on the tokenized RWA journey today, and how do you see the future unfolding over the coming years?
Yeah, one word: growth. Growth, growth, and growth. I think you referred to earlier that there's about $360 billion or so of tokenized real world assets now. That's a big number, and that's a growing number. You think about tokenized money market funds, which is one of the areas that's really important to us. We see about $10 billion worth of tokenized money market funds today. And those actually grew by about 120% last year. Marcus, that's a supernormal growth rate. That is really a supernormal growth rate. And that is because there's tangible demand, there's tangible market interest, and there's real world utility for investors who are using these products. So I think we're going to see growth. And what's underpinning that is that technology is now production ready. Regulatory clarity is improving. And these products like the tokenized money market funds I've referred to, they're gaining real traction. What's going to be important? I think interoperability is going to be important. I think collateral markets moving on chain are going to drive more growth, more demand. The evolution of distribution models will be an important factor. But more importantly, really the bottom line is that tokenization is what we're talking about today. Tokenization becomes the standard layer of financial market infrastructure. And that's where entities like Ripple have advantages and can execute on this. And this is where the XRP ledger can provide that layer that we as a financial institution can transact on and provide services to our clients.
Thank you, Alistair. Direction is certainly up and to the right. And look, just thank you, Alistair, for joining us here at the XRP Community Day. It's and sharing your thoughts and insight. And it goes without saying, we very much look forward to continuing our collaboration with you as the XRPL and XRP lead the charge in bringing TradFi assets on chain and unlock utility into the wider financial system. Yeah, wish everyone a good rest of the community day. Stay tuned for the next session on funding in the XRP ecosystem, which is now due. Thank you all, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Woo! Delicious. All right. Waiting for the next session right now to come in. Waiting for the next session right now to come in. That was so good. Baby, how we doing, fam? How we doing? Prices are boring and steady. Chilling, relaxing. We're looking at 11 a.m. East. So we right now had 2, and I want to double check if there's not if there's another swag drop, because there might be. Oh, baby, that's nice. We're going to find it on Ripple X. Right here. One more swag. That's the first one, guys. So more to come. I'm pretty sure more to come. Sold out. Because the people who were listening closely, right? When he said Ripple X account already posted the link, I was like, dude, rush. Run. All right. We got some people there from Dragonfly, Christina from Ripple X, and we got co-founder of Reforge, BC. All right. More people coming in. We started at 4,000 people in this space, guys. 4,000. Now we're at 2,000. So I get it. Makes sense. But we're here, so why not, right? It's a day of pain in the markets. Might as well get some free merch, have some great fun together. We got a lot of people here. I appreciate everybody, single one of you guys. Links down below. Subscribe to the channel, turn the notifications on. We always bring you the latest. Told you yesterday, right? And right now we're here, so pretty exciting times again. Okay? And I know the greatest momentum for the XRP army. Makes sense. Prices are in the dumpster, but who's buying the dip? Who's holding the line and not selling until much later? Are you guys ready? Diamond hands, 100% diamond hands. Good question, everybody. Can you hear the music Ripple is playing right now? Because I muted the desktop audio. Can you hear the music? I can, but I don't think you can. No? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I muted it because I don't want it to show. It might be copyrighted, and I don't want any problems. So, good. Thank you. It works. OBS works. Thank you. Thank you. TJ in the house. Shout out to Brandon Guay. TJ. Very good. Very good. Who's here? Chipper, Ghost, maybe. But TJ is here, number one. Always a big shout out to our TJ. Let's go. Sending your money soon, brother. Just after this whole thing. I got you. We got Jacob K too. All right. It's going to be a lot of people here. They're ready. Turn on the audio. And we are on. We're on. We're live. Quentin in the house.
All right.
There you go.
Hi, everyone. Let's get started. It was a great hearing about on-chain repos and institutions. I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about startups and VCs. I'm Christina, and I lead the ecosystem growth team here at Ripple. And a lot of what I focus on, or at least what our team focuses on, is growing startups, supporting startups in the ecosystem, working with builders, but also, connecting to different VCs and bringing them into the ecosystem. And that's been sort of a big topic that I hear, and a recurring theme is like, hey, all these entrepreneurs, like any entrepreneurs out there, whether in the blockchain or not, is they're always looking for funding, which is exactly what we're going to dive into in this session. Joining me here, we have three VCs. Rob from Dragonfly, Alex from Reforge, and we have Jacob all the way here from Singapore at Superscript. Welcome to the panel. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, Rob, Alex, and Jacob.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to dive right in. So maybe just to start off, really, really broadly, how would you describe the current the current funding environment right now? Like, where is capital flowing, and what's changed compared to a year or 2 years ago? Maybe Alex, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So I think, so hi, everyone. Alex from Reforge here. I think we're starting to see somewhat of consolidation happening. I think there's still a lot of capital out there, but the expectations of what that capital is used for and the short-termism that has plagued the industry for a long time with respect to, quick exit liquidity, playing the game of investing and expecting a token return well before companies achieve some level of success with product market fit and whatnot. Is making most people jaded. I think retail in particular looks at VC funding and says, hey, we are their exit liquidity. And I think now in 2026, that sentiment has reached this inflection point of we're not going to have it and we're not going to deal with that anymore. And that also has resulted in a lot of funding and capital allocators to realize, hey, because this playbook doesn't exist anymore, maybe we can't either. So I think money is getting smarter. That also raises the bar for and expectations for the quality of teams and founders building within the space, which I think is net positive, of course. And then with the introduction of institutions and obviously with the Trump administration really promoting that from the US, I think both from a regulatory perspective, but also more generally from a cultural perspective, I think that there's going to be continued net inflows that will continue boosting the space. But particularly on the early stage in terms of what I'm seeing, I think very excited for a continued allocation, but just in higher quality, less grifty opportunities.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Jaded on token launches. I'm curious, like, is it you have a hybrid when it comes? You seeing a lot of hybrid when it fundraise, or just mostly people just on the equity side and not taking tokens anymore from a VC perspective?
Yeah, I can quickly answer, and then maybe if Rob and Jacob have a perspective. But we're still seeing a hybrid structure with equity and a token warrant with the early stage, I guess, structure of contracts and investments. But there's less emphasis on this expectation that there will be a token just purely because they are a crypto native company.
Got it. Okay, and stronger founders, definitely. Rob, what's your take of what's going on in the market right now?
Yeah, I think we're seeing something a little bit different than what Alex is seeing, but that also might just be a little bit of a stage point. So I've had this discussion with like a number of different VCs the last couple of months, and frankly, the VC market is actually pretty active right now. If you look at the amount of capital that was deployed in January, it was actually quite strong, but it's really coalesced around not just okay, well, use cases that work, but the kind of use cases that are showing really, really strong product market fit. But it's also really coalesced around equity. So most of the VC capital right now is going into equity businesses. I think that's somewhat structural for the reasons of the fact that stable coins and payments is one of the hottest topics. Tokenization is one of the hottest topics. The things like continuing to have centralized exchanges and market structure, and call it some core infrastructure for like institutional adoption. Those continue to be one of the most actively funded parts of the market. Prediction markets is probably the one other, and these are by definition mostly kind of like traditional equity investments or private equity. DeFi continues to still do well, especially around derivatives, perpetuals, etc., because the fact that we're also seeing real clear product market fit there. I think across some of the more decentralized, call it tokenization platforms, there's some interest there as well. So things that will likely have tokens. But I think what we're also seeing is that when the market is as weak as it is right now, and we're seeing the repricing of a lot of these alt tokens as aggressively and as quickly as what's happening now, people don't want to take the risk of not understanding what the market will support, right? And so for a long period of time, when there was called seed or Series A investing in token projects, most of what would happen in the VC landscape would say, okay, well, I think there's some fundamental value here, but I also think, on a relative basis to where the market is pricing similar types of projects and what we think the addressable market is, this is the type of valuation that I can give this token. That's just completely upending itself at a time when, we've had a lot of tokens that over the last 3-4 months are down 70-80%, right? And so you have to be much more thoughtful around what that valuation is, how much money you're going to raise, how much dilution you're going to take, and what the tokenomics are ultimately going to be. And so I think to Alex's point, coalescing around the sort of these main themes with PMF, but I think we're also seeing quite a bit of focus on the financial use cases and the traditional equity or private equity type businesses.
Great, thanks, Rob. Jacob, what are you seeing in the market right now, especially being in APAC?
Yes. So I think a lot of what I'm seeing in the market is somewhat similar to what Alex and Rob are seeing. I'll try and provide a slightly different perspective. So, given that there is a little bit more pessimism around the performance of altcoins and tokens, and coupled with the fact that we're seeing a little bit more regulation that's friendly in the US with regards to stablecoins and things with product market fit, we're actually seeing a trend back towards more fundamentals. So, metrics that people can measure, whether it's volume, growth, users, revenue generation, and hopefully cash flows back to the business or protocol. And what that essentially means is that those things tend to flow back to equity as opposed to necessarily tokens. And people do that generally in bear markets or at the start of bear markets because they're not necessarily driven by hype. They're not driven by narrative. They're not driven by throwing capital at things that are very hot in the market at the moment. So I think given the stage that we're in the market, given the fact that we also have somewhat regulatory support for seeing better standards, there is actually more things that people can point towards in terms of numbers that they can peg value to. And so, at least on the VC side, what we're seeing is that there is a bit more focus on fundamentals, maybe more toward equity, and that aligns more with traditional fintech investing. That said, while altcoins and tokens are having a little bit of a negative moment, they still provide something that's quite differentiated necessarily to equity. when you talk about tokens, you're talking about communities, about products that scale on the internet, where people have a lot of belief, where you can really incentivize them with tokens. And they are currently high risk at the moment. So perhaps venture are a little bit scared to tip into those, but ultimately they still give you the reflexive 10, 20, 100x returns that venture is looking for. So ultimately, that's where we kind of see where the market is now. But of course, when the market's not looking at things like tokens, that's when you want to have a look at the teams that are really building that, because those could be the next unicorns in the next 2 or 3 years, when the market sort of starts to head back in a positive direction.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, a lot of the early products that came out, or dApps that came out of just crypto in general, was all, bootstrapped with tokens. So it'd be interesting to see where we go in the next couple of years, as we try to focus on more and more quality entrepreneurs. Maybe just to dive in a little bit more, Rob, I know there was an article where you wrote stablecoins and the collapse of the legacy payment model. I'd love to dive into just stablecoins a little bit more. We launched RLUSD. See, like, where you think it fits in terms of the RLUSD ecosystem, but also the broader payment ecosystem in your mind. Maybe Rob, we can start out with you.
Yeah. So I think what's really been really interesting about seeing how Ripple has attacked the stablecoin space has been that it's really been about bootstrapping, call it these real world use cases, primarily through a lot through acquisition, right? Which I've considered quite smart. So clearly, the Ripple team and the Ripple community have, sort of this war chest that they built up over many years, and this reputation. And you've had what has been, sort of a duopoly in the stablecoin space, with Circle and with Tether being, the vast majority of the general purpose stablecoin outstanding, and then you have like PYUSD and a little bit of these Paxos coins, and RLUSD now kind of bringing up the rear. I think RLUSD is roughly 1.5 billion now, and of the kind of that core group. And what has been a struggle for a lot of different people who are, call it, launching general purpose stablecoins today, US dollar stablecoins, but without, and trying to eat into, call it, that duopoly of Tether and Circle, has been, how do we go and convince people to use this without, call it, the deep liquidity, the deep on-ramp, off-ramp connectivity, the global acceptance that these others have built over. Tether's been around since 2014, and USDC has been around since 2018. And so I've really enjoyed seeing the the Hidden Road acquisition. I was on the board there and was close to them, and how RLUSD can be used as trading and collateral with what is the second biggest prime broker in the space. What's happened since then with acquisitions of Rail on the payment orchestration side, and on the treasury management acquisition that Ripple made as well, and getting these kind of legacy businesses and improving the technological backend and the software and the infrastructure to be able to put stablecoins in them, and making those businesses more efficient is going to be a big part of how I think we take that next wave of stablecoin adoption. And so I'm super excited about how Ripple has been really approaching that. And so I see it being a bit of a, call it, a flywheel or a snowball, where as those traditional businesses can start getting the usage and the issuance going, that liquidity begets liquidity, and usage begets usage. Now you can start to get more broadly accepted. But I do think, frankly, that the days of doing what we're seeing some others do, which is, we just pay a bunch of incentives to a bunch of DeFi protocols in hopes that they will hold our stable coins, like, those are going away, and those don't have nearly as high of ROI on what is kind of the next wave of fintech and stablecoin adoption. So that's what we're seeing so far on the Ripple side. I think it's still very, very early days. Stablecoin issuance has actually stalled a little bit the last few months. I don't actually think that's surprising. I think a lot of people do, but this is digitally native internet money that moves at the speed of light. And because the velocity of money can be so much higher, you don't actually need the same amount of supply as you would in something like an actual paper dollar. And so I'm very excited about what's happening. And I think 2026 is going to be the year where a lot of these proof of concepts become actual kind of real world adoption for a much broader set of users.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I think like fast forward maybe 5 years ago, I wonder if we'll still be using the term stablecoins, right? As it becomes sort of invisible to the end users, especially if they're getting or obfuscated for the users as stable payments get paid to end users. Maybe, a lot of startups coming in, especially when they build on XRP Ledger and where they have stablecoins flowing to XRP Ledger, they ask us for all USD. I'm kind of curious from like a VC's lens, which I think is kind of unique to XRP ecosystem, is that there is also XRP. I'm kind of curious how you, from the VC lens, see these two assets coexisting together, and what are sort of the opportunities there?
Yeah.
And maybe, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, Alex or Rob or Jacob, if any of you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll let one of the other guys take it.
Yeah. So I think that's a really interesting question, and I think I think it's really very dependent on some of the things that Rob was saying, which is as issuance slows down, I think the real opportunity and momentum goes towards stablecoins being more of a wedge, and then you kind of see everything else getting pulled in behind it, right? So payments and treasury are typically the easiest to explain to enterprises and incumbent institutions, with RWAs and collateral being a close second, because all of that stuff maps to existing mental models. And when you couple that with the rest of the stack that Ripple has built out through the acquisitions that Rob was highlighting, I think that it becomes a really powerful flywheel. And I think that that also is a testament to really to the strategy, I think, looking forward of, I think, what Ripple is doing really well, which is on one end, we're making XRP the institutional asset. And that becomes incredibly powerful as kind of a key driver. But then at the same time, this idea of scaling RLUSD through usage and holding through a bifurcated strategy kind of locks that in place. So the bifurcated strategy, as far as I'm concerned, is this: hey, let's take big swings with partnerships of every major company that we're familiar with on the retail side and institutional side, right? From your Walmarts of the world to your consumer products across the landscape, to then further down the stack, which is the developer evangelism. And I think when you have kind of this, hey, we're going to have stablecoins as a wedge, in which stablecoin distribution, it's not just like RLUSD is not just another stablecoin, but it matters where it lives, right? Is it living within payments? Is it in payroll? Is it with remittances? Is it with commerce rails? Is it with integration points like other ERPs? I think that scales really well when you think about distribution clarity. It's like, where are the real channels that can put product in front of institutions and enterprises? And again, that is where XRP then comes in really strategically. And then lastly, I would say is the regulatory advantage really has to be utilized. I think RLUSD is being positioned as, hey, we paid the regulatory price at Ripple, and so now we want to wedge into traditional financial institutions and brokers, as well as these enterprises that I mentioned. And I think that that will compress a lot of the go-to-market friction further down to developers. So I think that I think it's kind of this this really kind of sharp point by combining both XRP and RLUSD to essentially pave the way for not just institutional adoption, but then obviously all of kind of the use cases underneath it that will pull it along.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Especially, I just noticed that you were talking about developer evangelists or evangelism. A lot of what I hear in the past is like, hey, there's not a lot of activity on XRP Ledger, or it's a ghost chain. But I think that narrative is definitely changing. And so I'm really curious, like what, the audience here, Alex, Rob, or Jacob, what made you curious and why are you paying to XRP ecosystem right now?
Maybe I'll say a couple of things, and my response will also somewhat respond to the last question, right? So, RLUSD, when you look at how enterprises and people like to spend, consistency and understanding the base currency is important. So people are very familiar with the USD. It doesn't really fluctuate all that much relative to, let's say, a crypto asset, and so businesses will want to make payments in a USD denominated currency. A stable coin like RLUSD is really great for that. The XRP asset, on the other hand, is, to me at least, the concentration of value accrual to the Ripple ecosystem. The fact that Ripple has been around for many years, that it has made very smart acquisitions, whether it's custody, whether it's brokerage and getting liquidity through Hidden Road, whether it's stablecoin and payment companies, they've used the treasury to be very smart and strategic. I think, Rob, you had mentioned this before, but they've been very smart about acquisitions. And what attracts us to that is the fact that if enterprises, companies, institutions want to actually use blockchain rails to facilitate payments, they are going to need a whole set of infrastructure that is not just blockchain infrastructure, but can do a whole lot of other off-chain stuff that enables them to put currency on chain, that enables them to have liquidity to be able to swap things, that enables them to have stablecoin rails. And to me, that's what Ripple, relative to other blockchains, has done pretty well. They've been very strategic with the acquisitions. They've effectively enabled institutions and businesses to do business on the chain. And all of this is important because the ease of doing business is really key to onboarding things. If you look at all the payments historically that have happened on the internet, it's all been relatively seamless because blockchains have always been difficult. Hard to use, right? Whether you're a user or whether you're a business. So the fact that Ripple has sort of been very strategic about these things, I think, has been of interest to me, at least.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because the trend that we're seeing is as these startups come in and build on XRP Ledger, by and large, they are asking for other Ripple products, and it's becoming the space, especially if on the institutions or building a financial product, where you can access, blockchain itself, but also some of the other products that can serve the needs of your business. Maybe just zooming in a little bit more on XRP. I know everyone's talked about tokenization, payments being strong use cases. Just looking ahead in the next maybe 1 year, 2 year, what are some of the use cases that you want to see out of the XRP ecosystem that maybe you're not seeing now? Or where do you think, the XRP ecosystem should double down on in terms of use cases? Maybe Rob, I saw you go on mute. Go ahead.
Sure. Happy to take it. Listen, I'm probably a little bit different than the other two guys. We tend to write checks a little bit later stage, and where we've been really focused has been on the things that we think blockchains are really good at, right? And this is inclusive of XRP and XRPL, but it's also, I think, just more broadly true that blockchains are good ledger systems. They're good at moving value and money and information, and so we're really focused on financial use cases, and we continue to be. We have been, and we continue to be. And so, getting a really robust liquidity ecosystem that will allow for a broad set of trading different types of tokenized assets on chain, that is really important. Like, you need stable coins. Stable coins for payments are really important. The stable coins are in many ways the oil for what can be an on-chain economy that will be inclusive of these like vault products, right? So for instance, I gave a speech at a leadership offsite at one of the largest asset managers in the world about a month ago. And the entire conversation was around that asset manager getting closer to their end user or the end buyer of their product, and doing so in a way through personalization of asset management strategies in on-chain vaults. right? And this is the management of one of the largest companies in the world, right? And but to be able to do that, you can't build that first without building the broader ecosystem that supports tokenization, that supports the liquidity profile needed to swap in and out of different types of assets, without building the potentially the insurance contracts that need to be there, without building this like broad ecosystem that gets everybody comfortable with putting things on XRPL or on chain. And so where I'm really focused, and where we love to see startups, is continuing to focus on payments, continuing to focus on DeFi, continuing to focus on tokenization, all the infrastructure that goes into that, and then ways of which to bring much broader levels of assets or types of assets and much deeper liquidity for all those assets on chain.
Love that. Deeper liquidity, more assets. Alex, go ahead. I see you.
Yeah,
unmuted.
so similarly, I think finance is a big focus for us, if not the only focus at the moment. Really kind of everything that's happening in the world today, there is a re-architecting of the existing financial system as we know it, obviously with the introduction of digital assets for the last decade plus to AI. And so everything kind of needs to have that, has to go through this evolution. And our goal is to support companies that are a part of that change. It's practically in the name of our firm, Reforge. So more specifically, when we think about kind of what the institutional financial infrastructure would look like to be a bit more adjacent to digital assets, for example, obviously stablecoins is a core pillar to that. But more specifically, right, I think payments is very different from settlement. And I think a lot of times people use those two words synonymously, where payments is very is effectively peer-to-peer, right, transferring value from one party to another. Settlement is effectively when the obligation is legally and irrevocably satisfied. And so when we think about settlement, like I think stablecoins goes well beyond just payments and goes into this kind of underlying infrastructure and plumbing associated to everything being settled and at scale, right, in a permissionless, trustless way. And that becomes incredibly powerful when we start thinking about other markets such as trade finance, right, where there is no payment. Everything is open account credit, where you have 60-day payback periods, right? And if you can turn 60 days into seconds or minutes of payback, you effectively create this amazing.
I think we're going to get it back on track. I'll give it 75% that by the end of April, this is not just back on track, but very close to getting signed.
Pause a little bit, everybody. We're going to continue listening to the XRP community today. Welcome to everyone here. So a few more sessions for today and then till tomorrow, where you're going to hear more of the big legends like Monica Long, David, Stuart, and more. But FY, when it comes to the Clarity Act, he's looking at the end of April with 75% to be, just back on track again.
I think we're going to get it back on track. I'll give it 75% that by the end of April, this is not just back on track, but very close to getting signed.
Very close to getting signed. So it could be April, could be May, guys, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. And you and I probably know what the consequence is going to impact the crypto space, including XRP, including all of our altcoin bags, and of course, Bitcoin. We do need a pump. We do need things, a complete changing course for the crypto space as far as price. Just take a look at the poll. Just take a look at the whole environment. Everybody here right now, the sentiment is down bad. No matter how many good news we receive, and even the president said it yesterday in that video, guys, that I posted for you. It's like good news and we dump, bad news and we dump. It's like it's just not supposed to be that way. So with a new Fed chair, with more cuts, with QE, with clarity, big things are coming, and I'm buying before it's too late. FY. Like, subscribe, guys. Welcome aboard. Let's keep playing, and links down below. Big shout out to all my mods that are in the chat. Thank you, guys.
And you want to, and a chat bot appears at the bottom. You want to ask it, hey, how do I travel? How do I get the cheapest ticket to the Bahamas or to the US or halfway across the world? and you're expecting a response from that.
Hello? Okay, that's the next speaker, Grayscale. 10:30, so I'm sure that they're ending soon. No sound. Hello? Sleep again. Come back up.
Because you could probably sue them.
There you go.
And there's probably a good case to say that that wasn't you. So the alternative is using either blockchain wallets, blockchain rails, to be able to facilitate those payments. So what we're seeing is like a lot of teams trying to build in that space using payment rails, using blockchains that are tuned for payments, fast, low-cost payments, to be able to empower AI agents and code to effectively transact on your behalf. And so I think what's kind of interesting in that space is a few things. Firstly, blockchains that are very tuned into payments, so meaning low transaction costs, very fast transactions. And then secondly, also have a really good level of security, whether it's talking about the fact that there's somewhat limited smart contract capability. There's no such thing as MEV, which exists in blockchains like Ethereum and Solana. You want to keep it as simple as possible, because if code is going to simply use a blockchain to transact and send money on your behalf, you want to minimize any friction, you want to minimize any security threats. And so I really think that where there's at least an area of potential product market fit at the intersection of crypto and AI really is on the payment rail side and powering AI agents, because they have no alternatives at the moment to settle value.
That's really interesting, Jacob. I think that the general takeaway from that is it's like clay, right? You want to keep playing around with the idea and see if it hits. And that's what we want to encourage all the builders today in the ecosystem. Like, hey, you have an idea, keep playing around with it. We have Alex, Rob, and Jacob here kind of giving you a lens of what's going on in the market now and also in the next year or two. Really excited to, again, Jacob, Alex, Rob, thank you so much for your time and dropping some knowledge for the community. And with that, I will hand it over to the next section on growth of regulated XRP investment products.
Boom.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
There you go, fam. There you go.
Thank
There you
you.
go. So it's gonna continue. As I was looking here, they just finished this one, and we're gonna have the 11:30 East, which is happening right now. XRP in Global Regulated Finance, and then XRP Innovation Spotlight, and then and that's it. So two more, and that's it. Basically, two more, and that's it. It's gonna continue for like about 1 more hour. I'll keep an eye on things. I know that Brad was the first one, and kind of quickly we had some issues at the beginning, so it happens. But tomorrow we're gonna have some big people coming in, so I think that will be even better for us to stay the whole time. Okay, but that's all for me, guys. 1 hour and 30 minutes live. That's pretty good. We were live here early, so I hope you like the whole fiasco with the price. But still, we got some merch, so I'll take it as a win. We got some merch, fam. So I'm so excited. Once it gets home, I'll show it to you. It looks like it's signed by Brad Garlinghouse. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have it hang here on the wall or so. I'm not gonna use it. I want to make sure that it's displayed and people can see it. I mean, I think it's pretty powerful and special, right? Because a lot of people were listening, but still, those shirts go by, sweatshirts go by. Guys, thank you, TJ, Chipper, Brandon. Who else was here? Quentin and more, guys. Appreciate your support. Thank you. And yep, so far, not exciting prices for absolutely anything, right? Gold is holding strong, 5,000. Silver, 83. But crypto, we're just not doing it right now. So it's okay. It happens. That's the way it is. And we gotta swallow it until it changes. But we'll be here. XRP swag drop. We win more for sure. I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let's go.